Are we concerned about the future of this young man in Stephen Harper's country and his right to vote, perhaps?
Absolutely. I think Stephen Harper is doing a really good job at crumbling the very foundation of what Canada has been built up to, just in a very short period of time since he's gotten this so-called majority government. And I think it's time to listen to the people and let us have a true democracy.
Occupy cat. Is Jay Aspin sitting in someone else's seat?
Yes.
One of the things that has really bothered me about this last election is that it's failed to be truly democratic.
The controversy revolving around the robocall scandal. And frankly, that shouldn't be happening in a democracy like ours.
I think this is probably one of the biggest things that can happen in Canadian government right now. I mean, we're questioning the process that we've elected our officials. So, you know, I see this as a really, really big issue.
I care about democracy, and if we don't do something, and it's going to slip away. We had some great speakers here today who made all the points that need to be made, but I think the basic one is our apathy has got to end, and we have to take part in shoring up democracy.
Got a message for Jay Aspin?
I think that the biggest losers, honestly, are real conservatives who have ended up with an alliance-run party and have no control at all.
Please tell your party that this should be dealt with immediately.
Well, I wish he was here. I would have liked to have had a chance to talk with him for sure.
I don't know why you weren't here, Jay.
There's over 35 cities across Canada participating in rallies today, and I'm grateful to be in a community that cares as much as I do. So way to go, North Bay. Thank you for coming out. Okay, we've just been told the people on the streets got to move to the sidewalks. There's been complaints about the traffic. Thank you. We're here at our MP's office because we elected him to be our representative in Ottawa, and he needs to take our concerns to Parliament. We are here because as citizens, we have the democratic right to a fair and open election. Within this riding, calls were made to identify non-conservative voters, and then further calls were made to misdirect them to the incorrect poll stations. Within this riding, voters have come forward with this testimony. We are demanding a full independent judicial inquiry into calling practices and by-elections in all affected ridings.
Most of you know me as a Green Party person. I was the provincial candidate in the recent election. I'm coming here not representing the Green Party, but as a citizen concerned about the electoral process. But I'm also proud to stand here as the provincial candidate for the Green Party because my colleagues Henri Giroux, Catherine Whiting, and Vic Fideli and I carried on an election in the way that I think it should be done. And we talked about it amongst ourselves and came to a conclusion that we would come out here, stand before the people, put forth our party's platforms, and criticize each other's platforms, but not each other's person. And I think that's the kind of politics we'd like to see in Canada. Something went wrong in the last election. Let's find out who did it. If it's a crime, they should go to jail. And we need to get clear on our electoral process and send the message, not just to Conservatives, but to politicians in every party, that this will not be condoned by the Canadian public.
Thank you, Scott. We're going to hear now from Bill Hagbord, the president, I guess, of the Liberal Association.
Thanks very much, Nicole. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I do recall receiving lots of calls to our campaign office back in May of people saying that they were being told to go vote somewhere else. Their card was incorrect, and other people receiving harassing calls. At the time, we didn't really think much of that. So we need to see more people in the riding that may have experienced any one of these irregularities to submit their complaint to Elections Canada. They've got a very simple online form that you can use, and I can't stress enough that people need to be doing that. If we're going to have a full and proper investigation, we need to let Elections Canada get that information, and if that leads, which I hope it does, to a full formal judicial review, we have too much apathy in Canada when you look at the voter turnout, and as Anthony kept saying to people during the last election, well, that's the biggest enemy of democracy is apathy and people not expressing their rights and getting out and voting. So the last thing we need is this type of a situation that will turn more people off of the democratic process that we cherish so dearly. So that's another reason why it's very, very important that we get to the bottom of this. So.
I'm not going to be as kind to the government as some of the people before me, I'm afraid. I don't see this as something unusual for this government, and I hope this doesn't mean now my internet is going to be hacked into and they're going to find something. So if I go to jail, please come and help me. I think if we can learn anything by looking at the history of the 20th century, it's that a society doesn't transform overnight into an anti-democratic society. It happens slowly through attrition. We're busy with our lives, we don't pay attention. And I think we're at a pivotal moment right now where this government has been moving towards eroding what I consider some of the key values of what I consider to be Canadian society. And this has been happening over my lifetime to the point where I don't even recognize my country anymore a lot of the time. We have a government that appears to be more concerned with jailing imaginary criminals and building warplanes than feeding its people or protecting its environment. And apparently, because I'm a supporter of Greenpeace as well as the NDP, I'm a terrorist, according to someone who will remain nameless. So I just have to say, I'm going to keep this really short, but I think democracy is never anything we can take for granted. It's a very delicate and vulnerable system, and it's up to every single one of us to make sure that it stays an open and transparent system. And I think it's very easy to fall into a kind of despair about what's going on, and I believe the antidote to despair is always action, and that means that every single one of you, whatever party you work with, whatever grassroots group you work with, that you also let the government know that we're not going to accept this happening in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Is better? Okay, Scott, Dr. Scott Daley is also going to speak to us.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. As we gather here today, we should remind ourselves that democracy is not so much a form of government as a set of principles that we must live by. We are here today in support of those principles. Yes. As Canadians, it is in our very nature to respect the diversity of opinions. And though we, with good conscience, may disagree on many things, it is ultimately our sense of fairness that defines us as a nation. And nowhere is fairness more important than when you're choosing our elected officials. We are not here today as liberals or conservatives or Greens or New Democrats, but simply as citizens demanding the integrity of the electoral process be placed above all reproach. Today, a country that within living memory put 1 million men under arms to fight for democracy has a problem with the most basic function of a democracy, a free and open election. What are our demands? We call for a full and independent judicial inquiry with by-elections held where any reasonable doubt exists that illegal tactics may have affected the outcome of the vote. These are not radical ideas, as some have tried to label them. It is simply a call to uphold the rule of law. The radicals are the ones who have tried to seize power by copying the sordid tactics of military juntas and third world dictators, and as it has always been, it is ordinary citizens who stand in quiet opposition. Today as we speak and gather, over 30 rallies are happening in cities across our great Dominion. And as we prepare to leave and return to our lives, we must be conscious of the very real danger, however remote and improbable that it may seem today, that our democracy, left undefended and without champions, will wither and die in the desert of citizen disengagement and voter apathy. But let us also find comfort in the knowledge that around the world and throughout history, from ancient Athens to the French Revolution, from Polish solidarity to the Arab Spring, courageous citizens have swept aside kings and oligarchs, dictators and tyrants, to embark on the great human endeavor of self-governance. Ultimately, the fate of our democracy rests solely with those of us who will defend it. And in the next month and years, as we fight these battles, may all of us do our duty so that each of us may be worthy of the title of citizen. Thank you.
So Terry O'Connor has approached me, and he'd like to say a few words. And if there's anybody else who want to say a few words, just come see me before Terry's done talking. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be quite brief, I won't be long, but I've been talking to a few people around here, and I've been listening very carefully to what's been said. And the feeling of the whole gathering, to me, is outrage. We're outraged at what's happened to our democracy here in Nipissing riding. I'm outraged. But that's not enough. There's one point that I want to make, one point only, and I want to make it as clearly as I can. I don't see Jay Aspin here, and I'm not criticizing him for not being here. There's probably many good sound reasons why he couldn't be here. But I think it's time for Jay Aspin to take action on behalf of his riding. It's time for him to take action by standing up and saying, I'm going to resign. Let's have an honest election. Let everybody make a proper choice. I think Jay Aspin should resign right now. Let's have a fair election, and Jay Aspin is certainly in a position to give us one. Thank you.
Henry, what brings you here today?
I'm just coming here today. Of course, we understand that democracy is the thing to do, right? But at the end of the day, I think that we're spending way too much time on this robocall. I think we should be spending more time in finding out what's other stuff that's happening, like the OAS and the job cuts and the budget that's coming up. I think that's what we should be focusing on more. I think the Conservative just enjoy this
smoke screen, right?
Smoke screen, yeah.
Interesting.
It's easier for them now to say, like, you listen to a question period, and that's all it's about for the last 2-3 weeks. Well, we don't need to talk about this anymore. Let the Election Canada do their work, and let's us do the work that needs to be done, and make sure that they don't pass all these new legislation they want to pass.
Well said. Perhaps we should be resisting the Conservative agenda and letting this work out itself in the courts.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, yes.
Do you have a message for Jay Aspin?
Well, all I'm saying to Jay Aspin is, you know what? I mean, he won the election by 18 votes, and if the Election Canada says, it was a scam, then we should have another election. But if not, let's move on with the work of the day. We need to make sure that the work of the day. We were here a week ago complaining about the pension, the OAS going up to 67. I think that should be one of the top priority for our seniors, for people that are going to suffer at the end of the day, the poverty people. So I think that we're okay. We need to fight this, but I think we have a bigger fish to fry.
High five.